After just hours of being in the United Kingdom, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have threatened to sue over the purchase of a £12 million home in the Cotswolds.
Harry and Meghan land in Britain. The Sussexes landed at Birmingham Airport at lunchtime on Wednesday.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are going back to the UK! Oh my God!
Harry and Meghan see their California dreams and riches fade away. Then they talk about how their foray into podcasting did not go well.
So it's the same thing of Harry and Meghan living in the Cotswolds. You know, I reported as well about a week and a half ago, they wanted to live near Highgrove, Stoke on whatever.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are back in Britain, but if they thought returning to the UK would be a quiet new chapter, that plan may already be falling apart. Because within hours of their reported arrival, the biggest controversy was not a royal reunion, not a glamorous public appearance, and not some emotional homecoming. It was a house, a reported multi-million-pound property in the Cotswolds that has suddenly become the center of a growing storm involving money, privacy, journalists, security, and questions about what Harry and Meghan's return to Britain really means.
This is just nuts. It's totally nuts when you're attempting to win back the British public. You're not even going to tell us that you're actually in the country. And then you thought we had moved on from these ludicrous legal threats. Can I just say, I personally, and I'm going to be very honest with you about this, and some of you might disagree with me, I personally have absolutely no plans to reveal the location of the home or where the children go to school.
And the biggest question is this: why would a couple desperate for privacy move into one of Britain's most closely watched areas while reports about their new home are already dominating the headlines? That is where this story gets fascinating. According to reports from royal commentators and journalists, Harry and Meghan are understood to have been looking at or purchasing a property in the Cotswolds, with figures being discussed in the region of £12 million to £15 million.
I was pretty surprised when I rang their office today, and I was like, look, I've been told that this is the house that they've bought, this is how much they've paid for it, which is a lot of money. It's in excess of £12 million. So what's that, $14 million, something like that. I was pretty horrified to basically be threatened with being sued. I'm like, look, A, you can't sue me. You know, the Daily Beast is a US publication, so it's not part of Ipsos.
That is not exactly a modest country retreat. It is the kind of price tag that immediately raises questions. How are they funding it? How long will they actually live there? Will the children attend school nearby? And perhaps most importantly, is this really a permanent family move or the beginning of a much bigger change in the Sussexes' lives? Because the reports surrounding this property have created a contradiction that critics are already pointing out.
They have indeed bought a house near the chocolate box town of Stow-on-the-Wold for a figure between 12 and 15 million pounds. He said the kids will be going to a nearby fashionable school that has something of a tree climbing, let kids be kids vibe. He says he is definitely not going to identify the house or the school beyond saying that it is not Bow Desert Park. But he says somebody will, because it is so widely known in all of these Cotswold circles that the whole of Fleet Street is spending today trying to establish whether they're just agreed or if contracts have been exchanged.
Harry and Meghan have repeatedly emphasized their concerns about privacy and security. Yet, at the same time, reports about their relocation, their arrival, their children's schooling, and now even the area where their new home may be located have been circulating publicly. And that brings us to the first major controversy. Journalist Tom Sykes has reportedly faced legal pressure after discussing information about the alleged purchase. He has said that sources provided information about the property and its approximate value, while he deliberately stopped short of identifying the exact house or school.
I'm sorry, I think there is a public interest in the fate of two people who tried to undermine the country's most revered and beloved institution, who did what they did with their eyes open, who knew full well they were leaving the protective embrace of the royal family. They went out into the big wide world. They called the royal family a bunch of racists and cruel-hearted meanies. And do you know what? I just think people are entitled to have their own opinion about that. And I think they're entitled to have their own opinion about them living in a house that I'm told It was marketed for north of £12 million.
That distinction matters. There is a huge difference between saying, Harry and Meghan may have purchased a property in this region, and publishing the exact address where their children live. Even critics of the Sussexes recognize that line, but the controversy is about whether simply reporting the existence of a high-value property in a particular area crosses that line.
You know, I think it's also just it's just a completely impractical. This thing of saying we're not even going to admit we're in England. We're not in England. What's going on then? Am I tripping? Like, you know, it's such a gaslighting thing.
And this is where Harry and Meghan's history with the media makes everything more explosive. Their relationship with the British press has been hostile for years. So, when reports emerge that journalists are being warned about legal action almost immediately after their arrival, it creates a familiar question. Are Harry and Meghan trying to protect their privacy, or are they once again preparing for another battle with the media?
You know, maybe that'll work with the British legacy media that are terrified of King Charles, like cutting them off from a photo of him going on his next trip to St. Lucia or wherever he's going. But it's not going to work with American organisations and international organisations. Like, it's a ridiculous way to go about business. And if this is how they intend to approach living in this country, it's going to end really, really, really badly.
Yeah, because I agree with Sykes. You lost. You lost, Harry and Meghan. This is meant to be making up with us.
Their supporters would obviously argue that protecting their family is completely reasonable. Their critics, however, see something different. They argue that if the couple wants a quiet life, the best strategy would be to quietly settle into the countryside rather than allowing their return to become a giant media event.
Meghan was lousy to her employees, and that a PR person who had worked for her was very upset and all this stuff. He said, that's absolutely not true. I said, are you on crack? It's only been in print by others gazillions of times. So I not only went ahead with the article, I quoted all of the times that Meghan had infuriated people. Liam is a bit of a bully. I'm not sure he really knows what he's doing.
And that leads directly to controversy number 2. Harry and Meghan reportedly arrived in Britain by private jet, and immediately people began asking, whose jet was it? Who paid for it? And why return this way if the goal is to create a quieter, more private life? Now, there is nothing inherently unusual about wealthy or high-profile people using private aviation. But with Harry and Meghan, every travel decision becomes part of a much larger conversation about their lifestyle. They have spent years talking about environmental concerns, privacy, security, and independence. So naturally, critics are going to scrutinize how they travel, where they stay, and how they maintain multiple properties.
So anyway, they've landed. I don't know if this is Tyler Perry's jet. I don't know whose jet they're borrowing because they are professional freeloaders and couch surfers, to be honest. They're literally professional freeloaders and couch surfers. Remember when they were living at Tyler Perry's house with all of his like Medea wigs and different characters? That house is probably haunted. You couldn't have paid me to live at Medea's house. But they were like professional royal couch surfers. So I would bet my bottom dollar they did not pay for this jet, but who knows? They've landed back in the UK. They're back on their worldwide privacy tour. Remember, they left the UK because they wanted privacy and more of a private life, and they didn't want to be hounded, and they wanted the kids to have normalcy. Well, that didn't last long because the second the money ran out, the second Netflix was done, the second Oprah was done, the second Martha Stewart was done. Who am I missing?
And now there appears to be another home entering the equation. The Montecito property, the reported UK property, and their property interests elsewhere. That creates another obvious question. How sustainable is this lifestyle? The Sussexes have repeatedly emphasized that they are financially independent, so the public inevitably wants to understand how this entire arrangement works. And that brings us to another issue that has quietly followed Harry and Meghan for years: their business success.
The kids are set to start school soon. We have some notes. I guess I should read them here, right? So they flew in. Archie and Lilibet are set to begin school in England next week, if they exist. They brought their dogs Mia and Pula with them to England, but they're keeping their chickens in Montecito. Maybe chicken is code for Harry's mistress. We don't know. They might be returning to royal life. We don't know. They're going to continue independent business deals. I am sure they are. I'm sure they are, because grifters are going to grift, scammers are going to scam.
One of the most damaging chapters in that story was their Spotify deal. Harry and Meghan signed a reported $20 million deal with Spotify in 2020, but the partnership eventually ended after limited output. Meghan produced Archetypes, while Harry reportedly struggled to develop a podcast project of his own, and recent reporting has brought some of the behind-the-scenes frustration back into the spotlight. One of the strangest ideas reportedly discussed involved Harry reviewing hot chocolate while speaking with different guests.
Harry and Meghan see their California dreams and riches fade away. Then they talk about how their foray into podcasting did not go well. They signed this $20 million deal with Spotify in 2020, but only produced one season of Archetypes, as I mentioned, which was a ridiculous podcast in which this woman who's accomplished nothing, who's done nothing, wanted to lecture us all on what female empowerment means. I mean, it was just absurd. Go do something, anything. You got married, that's great. Most people do it. It doesn't make you special.
Another idea reportedly involved him fixing everyday problems, ranging from a flat tire to much bigger issues. Whatever you think of those concepts, the larger issue is simple. What exactly was Harry supposed to produce? Because leaving royal life meant leaving behind the traditional structure that came with being a senior working royal. The new promise was independence, commercial success, creative freedom, and financial self-sufficiency. But the Spotify experience became an uncomfortable example of how difficult that transition could be.
Your stupid commercial that, like when she was a kid, that she wrote into Dove or somebody on how like they shouldn't show women wiping counters. Okay, you can't make a lifetime out of that. I'm sorry to tell you. Anyway, so that was it for $20 million. And that podcast did not do well at all. So Spotify, they report behind the scenes, was desperately trying to get them to produce something else, anything, to justify these millions. And we always wondered, we kind of had a feeling why Bill Simmons caught, because he's over at Spotify and part of the executive team.
And that is why some commentators are now looking at the UK move differently. Maybe this isn't simply about Harry missing Britain. Maybe it's about the fact that the California experiment hasn't produced the level of success they originally expected. That doesn't necessarily mean the Sussexes are broke. It doesn't, but it does mean the public has every reason to question whether their post-royal strategy has worked as smoothly as originally imagined.
Harry never made anything. So, at least Markle did the one. Despite workshopping ideas with the company for a year, one idea, said one person close to the couple, was, wait for it, taste testing hot chocolate around the country. This was apparently too laborious for Harry or something, because he rejected it.
And there is another problem. Harry and Meghan left Britain because they wanted freedom. They wanted privacy. They wanted to build their own life. They moved to North America, signed huge commercial deals, launched projects, produced documentaries, podcasts, and business ventures. But now they are reportedly back. And Harry, in particular, has repeatedly spoken about missing Britain, his friends, his homeland, his old life, his family. According to royal commentators, that homesickness may have played a role in the decision. But Meghan's situation appears more complicated. Reports suggest she may continue spending significant time in California because of business commitments. And that has triggered one of the most controversial theories surrounding the entire move. Could this be the beginning of a physical separation between Harry and Meghan?
There is so much damn spin in this article. It's unreal. Now you got to remember that People magazine has been caught writing for Harry. Prince Harry says, and they had to go change it. A source for Prince Harry says. So this is coming from them. And we're now seeing this on the BBC and others. This is being reported all over. This is not some rumor. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are making a shocking move back to the UK with their kids. The same kids in Meghan Markle who could never come back to the UK because it's so dangerous. Someone might throw toxic waste and poison on her. Oh, they're now moving back.
Now, we should be careful here. If Harry spends much more time in Britain while Meghan continues her life in California, they could effectively become a transatlantic couple. And that is a very different marriage dynamic from the one they presented when they first moved to California. The irony is hard to miss. They once left the UK together to build a new life. Now, they may be returning together while potentially spending much of their time apart. And that is why the house itself matters. This isn't just about bricks, bedrooms, and acreage. The property could represent a new permanent base for Harry. A place where his children can experience Britain. A place where he can reconnect with old friends. And perhaps, most importantly, a place where he can build a life that exists separately from California. Harry wants security. That has been one of his biggest arguments for years. But large country estates don't automatically create perfect privacy. The British countryside is filled with public footpaths. People can legally walk through areas surrounding private estates where public rights-of-way exist. That creates a strange problem. The bigger the property, the more privacy you might expect. But the reality can be very different. A celebrity can buy a huge estate and still discover that members of the public are legally walking nearby. And if Harry and Meghan choose a home in an area already famous for wealthy celebrities and public figures, attention is almost inevitable. That means the couple could be walking directly into the exact media environment they claim to dislike.
This news has been broken, but this is wild. This is wild. And I gotta celebrate. They're finally leaving the U.S. Oh my goodness. Now it does say they're keeping the Montecito house. So I guess they'll use it as a base. Are they gonna Airbnb it out? Like, can we Airbnb their home in Montecito? Oh my God, can you imagine? I would definitely do that for a weekend and make some content there. Or are they just gonna leave it open? How can they afford that? How can they afford to keep the Montecito house and their Portugal house? And now they're gonna have some home in the UK that they're saying is non-royal. That's what this article is revealing. I am floored. I am floored by this news. This to me, while they're out there and trying to make this sound like, you know, they're successful, the People magazine article is nuts.
Which raises the ultimate question. Was the UK move actually designed to escape attention, or was it designed to regain relevance? Because the timing is remarkable. Harry has been pushing his security concerns. Meghan has been building her own brand. Their commercial projects have faced mixed reactions. Their relationship with the British media remains intensely hostile. And suddenly they're back with a new home, a reported 12 to 15 million pounds price tag, a private jet arrival, and lawyers already being mentioned in connection with reporting about the property. That is not exactly a quiet homecoming. It is a headline machine. And whether Harry and Meghan intended it or not, the British public is going to be watching. The next major test will be what happens after the cameras disappear. Will Harry actually settle into Britain? Will Meghan spend most of her time in California? Will the children remain in British schools? Will they appear publicly with the royal family? Will Harry rebuild relationships with old friends? And perhaps the biggest question of all, can Harry and Meghan return to Britain without turning the entire move into another royal war? Because if they truly want a fresh start, this is the moment to change strategy. No constant legal threats, no endless media battles, no carefully managed leaks, no competing with William and Catherine. Just a quiet life. But if the first few hours are any indication, quiet may be the one thing that is hardest for this couple to achieve. And now, the 15 million pound house has become more than a property story. It may be the first chapter of the biggest change in Harry and Meghan's post-royal life. So, what do you think? Is this genuinely a fresh start for Harry and Meghan in Britain? Or is the reported Cotswolds move actually the beginning of a much bigger separation between their lives in the UK and California? And what do you make of the reported 12 to 15 million pounds price tag and the controversy surrounding journalists reporting on the property? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, because this story is clearly not finished. And don't go anywhere. On the end screen, I'm recommending another video that breaks down the latest controversy surrounding Harry and Meghan's return to Britain. Click that video now, because the next part of this story may be even more explosive.